Hey everyone, before I start today's episode, I just want to say, number one, the audio is going to be pretty bad since my phone died. It's pretty much on its last leg. I'm about to upgrade to a new phone soon. The current one I have now is the iPhone 8. Not a Plus, not anything. The first generation of iPhone 8. Piece of crap right there. Second, coffee. Need this every day in my life, every damn second. Third, I'm tired. That's it. Let's go. So today, story time with Drew. Got a little Drew going on. I'm happy because I'm eating. Not that it's a bad thing, is I haven't had much to eat today. So this, one of two. I have 20 chicken nuggets waiting for me once I'm done, and I can just smell them just... But, I'll take one more bite. Right back. Okay, so today I have a very special story time with Drew. This story, I usually tell people I'm really close with, and they usually go like, wait, what? You don't seem like the kind of person who would be affected by that. So today I'm telling the story of how my father kidnapped me. And if my mother is watching this, which I know she is, there's a lot of stuff I'm not going to mention for a certain reason due to it being very, very confusing and just a lot of things that just should not be mentioned. So I know you're going to text me in the future, Mom. I'm just waiting for it. So, a little bit of a backstory. So originally, I was born in Phoenix, Arizona. I stayed there for about 2 months after my birth, and my parents were deciding of where to move since they wanted to be completely moved out of my grandpa's house as soon as possible. Now, there's two options that they were going with. One, North Carolina. And two, back to Oregon. Luckily, they chose back to Oregon, and they went and moved all the way to Wilsonville, which is one town over from where I actually grew up. And then my parents split once they were in Wilsonville, and custody went to my dad, and I went and saw my mom, every other weekend, as some kids usually do. As some normal kids do, which divorce usually happens nowadays. Let's be honest, marriage is complicated. Yeah, it is. And so I grew up in Canby for majority of my life. Went from kindergarten all the way to the middle of 8th grade, which is a significant amount of my childhood, which, granted, I don't remember all of my childhood. I remember, the good parts and big chunks here and there. Not like the fine details. Anyway, so the beginning of my 8th grade year, things kind of start spiraling downhill for my father. He started dating his best friend's widow. And he's known his best friend for many, many years, but tragically he died several years prior due to some medication complications, and so his widow was left with her 3 kids. And so my dad decides to, try to get close to her. And there was a time I went to her parents' house, and I talked my dad off to the side for a minute. And I told him, hey Dad, I have a bad feeling about her. I would appreciate if you didn't date her. He looked me in the face and went, don't worry, I'm not dating her. Her and I are just friends. And what does he do? Dates her the next week. And at that point, that's the first time I ever felt betrayal by my own father. And my sister started noticing that we started having less and less food in the house. Not like, we don't have our usual things. No, it was noticeable that there was no food in the house. You would open up cupboards, 3 cans. Yeah. So my sister was basically, my second mom for a while, which I really do appreciate, and she doesn't realize how much I appreciate that now. And so my sister notices, things aren't going good. I want to be out of here. Since the relationship between my father and my sister weren't so good at all. No bueno. She moves out when she's 17, and I'm stuck with my dad. And my dad decides, yeah, let's go live with Melissa. Everything will be fine. He didn't know that I knew we got evicted. I know. Tragic. But it gets worse. He didn't pay rent for 3 months straight because all his money was being poured into his girlfriend. Not his kids, his girlfriend. That is a cigarette addiction. So, I'm moving with Melissa and her 3 kids. I had to share a room with the oldest, who's a year younger than me. And so, the beginning of 8th grade year is coming by where we have a party with our new neighbors who, you know, they're bonding with my dad and Melissa and everybody else. And what do? They get drunk and leave the front and back door open. And we're on the ground level too, and we're in a meh area of Canby. And we wake up and a few small things are taken. Like some arrows for a bow, like a mechanical bow. Some money, some other little trinkets. And who does the blame go to within a fraction of a second? Me. With no hesitation, Melissa's like, oh, Drew did it. It's like, how? I was here when everybody else was here. I was asleep, and I woke up with everybody else. Doesn't matter, you did it. So for that, I got grounded till I could pay everything off. I wasn't even 14 at this time, so I couldn't even get a job. So it was just punishment of punishment. And so that's when things started spiraling down even more. I told my mother about this, and she talked to my dad saying, here, let me take Drew in for a while so you can get stable on your feet. And this was the first time in years that they actually got along well enough to agree on something very beneficial. Like, I witnessed them, like, talk through a screen door. I couldn't hear anything. But my dad was almost crying, and he hugged her, which was like, oh shit, that never happens. So they've been broken up since I was 2. Well, around 1.5, so you know what I'm saying. And so I start living with my mom. I'm currently, I don't live too far from where I used to live with my mom. It was in a very small house, and she didn't expect me to be living with her. So originally she had, a townhouse where everybody had their own room. Now she had like a 2-bedroom house, 1 bedroom, very small. I had to share with my little sister for a while. But I started going to a middle school called Whitford Elementary School. For anybody who doesn't know of that middle school, let me rephrase, or I can't speak. Let me tell you a bit about it. As I had a bit of a brain fart. So Whitford Middle School, not elementary school, since I know I accidentally said that, it was one of the worst schools I have ever visited and heard about. It was that school where it's like, oh yeah, typical things are going to happen. Kids fight, here and there. But when students start physically fighting with teachers, that's on another level. Or when kids decide to throw a chair when the teacher asks them to please draw a circle. It only gets worse. There was a bully there named Cora, who had a little, a posse that kind of obeyed her since she could shit out of anybody who came pissed her off. And some guy came up to me and said, whatever you do not call Cora Dora. Replied with Dora the Explorer. He said, yes, do not say that anywhere near her. And so I'm like, okay, I'm trying to make friends with her, I'll be the new kid who makes friends with the top dog. Kind of like a typical scenario for prison, but not beating him up. So I go up to her, walking down this hill into a little flat area. I see people kind of circle around. It's like, oh, that's where Cora is. I go over and I say, oh, hey, Dora. Not realizing I said Dora instead of Cora. And how movies are with kids, they're looking at the main person, and then all of a sudden they're they all shift to the person who just did something very terrible all at once. That was me! And they all parted so she could walk straight down the middle. Granted, I was about like this tall now, or that tall, so I was tiny and skinny. So I was a toothpick. You could flick me, I could break. And she was like, somewhat built. It looked like she did go to the gym a lot. And so she came up to me and was like, "Did you just call me Dora?" And me being smart, I started to get ready to, jump to the side just in case she would throw a punch. And I said, "Yes." And at this point, I could already see a fist slowly coming up. So I jumped to the right. And if I didn't jump that, I would have been hit in the face, because a full-on, all her shoulder was put into this punch too, and she almost fell. So I'm like, nervous laughing, as I run in a giant circle just to get away from her for 5 minutes. Then I run up a hill, and I'm running on it sideways to make sure that she didn't follow me. She kept following me until the end of, our free time, until we went back to class. And the rest of the time I went to that middle school, she kept trying to find me just to kick my ass. I was just I was looking at my locker, just messing with the thing, because I never used lockers, because I don't have anything in my backpack. I just found no use for lockers. I got up, next thing I heard someone punch the locker right where my head was. And I look behind me, it's her. So what do? I wiggle my way through a crowd, disappear, and go to my class. Now, on that exact same day, I got a call to go to the main office for some reason. And I go there, and it's my dad. And he has a really fat stack of papers for some reason. I don't know why. Well, I didn't know why at first. Then, after the whole situation happened, it was the documentations for child custody and, him having the rights and such. He came in a little bit with a weird look on his face. And I couldn't quite describe it at first. And then I realized it could have been meth in his system. Or some other drug, because he was not himself. He wanted to, start an argument with the principal when the principal was like, "I agree with you. Yeah, go ahead, take him." He was very calm about this, and my dad was just nudging him just to get into an argument. And they decided, nah, let's just go. So I'm brought back to Canby, and it's the day before my birthday, December 18th. So, very important date, 19th of December. So the next day, everybody celebrates my birthday and acts like nothing ever happened. And I'm just like, okay. And when my dad had some alone time with me, he kind of got all serious and said, "So, tomorrow, I'm getting in a U-Haul truck, and I'm going all the way to Texas to go live with your grandma. Either you can come with me, or stay here and never see me again." Full-on guilt-tripping me. And I was just I didn't know what to do at first, since I lived with my dad for a majority of my life, and now he's putting me in the situation of, "Oh, come with me," or "never see me again." What was I supposed to do? So I ended up going with him, even though, unknowing to both of us, my mom, very smartly, went to court to, get custody, or to have an actual, custody hearing. And I wasn't supposed to leave the state. It was against the law for me to leave the state, from what she told me, and if I remember correctly. My dad didn't know it. He ignored it. So the next morning, everything was packed, got in a U-Haul truck very early in the morning, and drove to Texas. Took a few days, but on the way there, we stopped in Arizona to say hi to my grandpa, who had the exact same house. And I looked around for a day. It was like, interesting, I grew up here? Am I wrong? And then we started going to Texas again. Got there by Christmas, so yay. But there was a problem. My grandma had 3 bedrooms. one of which was her personal bedroom. The other was an office. The third was storage that you could get in maybe a few feet because of all the stuff she had. And so my dad was like, he needs a room. He's, 1 year away from high school, so he needs his own space. So my dad and I, we moved back to Arizona to live with my grandpa, who, conveniently enough, lived across the street from an elementary school and across, just a little bit down the road from a high school. You could walk outside and see the high school. Go. Cool. But this middle school, I almost caught myself off guard again, was considered an elementary school due to it being K through 8. And even though it was small, it was a disaster. Who in their right mind would want a school that big, yet so small, such a variety of people? Something bad is bound to happen. And a few bad things did happen at that school I was attending. First bad thing, during gym, a guy I became kind of good friends with. He was just, chilling on the pavement near a hoop on the ground, since it was Arizona in the winter, so it was like, this is nice weather. Then some dum-dum decided, hey, you know what? I'm gonna make this half-court shot! And wouldn't you know it, it missed the hoop and went straight on his face. And the dude was like, his head was like laying like this, or it was on the concrete. I couldn't quite see where his hands were. They were near his head. But the ball came down so fast, it broke his nose. He couldn't even stand properly. The ambulance was called, and the nurse came in with a wheelchair to kind of get him to the front so they can get him to the hospital faster. And even though I was only in Arizona for 2.5 months, from late December to middle of February, I didn't see that guy again. It happened in middle of January, so I don't know if the kid's alright, I don't know if he died, I don't know if he's good. But then there came a day my mom came and got me. I was just in language arts class, and also a teacher that looked kind of familiar. It was weird deja vu, since I've never met anybody who looked like this teacher, but there was a weird deja vu thing to him. Picked up the phone, his eyes immediately shifted to me, and my body told me, pack your things, before he even finished the call. So I started packing my things, and I got my backpack on, and he said, your mom's here to get you. It's like, yeah, I had a feeling as much. Okay, everybody, I'm going back to Oregon. And everybody looked shocked. It's like, what? And as I was walking out the door, it's like, bye. Kind of leaving them stumped. So I go to the front office, and there my mom is with a few police officers, and she's almost crying. And she says, I'm taking you back home. And my dad got home early that day, and the cops went to my house, just literally across the street. And they knocked on the door, and the first question they asked is, are you the father of Drew Mariano? He said no. And they were a bit confused at first, but then they kept asking a few questions. And then after a while he said, oh yeah, I am his father. I'm like, why didn't you say so earlier? I just want to know what you want. And granted, my dad, he dealt with the cops a lot back in Canby, a lot. Every girlfriend he had, the cops would come over at least 2 times. And when we first got to Arizona, he was like, so if the cops ever ask what your real name is, just lie. It'll be fine. They never came over, except for that one time. Anyway, back to the main story. Sorry for going off. The officers asked, can we get some of his belongings? He said no. So I left to Oregon with the clothes I had on and my backpack. So the next day, after my mom had a court hearing with Melissa, who moved down there for a while, my grandpa, my dad, and my mother. All 4 of them were in a courtroom discussing, okay, who should have custody, your mother or your father? Melissa obviously was trying to side with my dad. I don't know the whole story for her. My dad, he was trying to defend himself, saying, I was only doing the best for him. My grandpa kept saying, oh, the boy, never referring to me by name, which was a bit odd, even though that he favored me a lot. But think he was just trying to save his own ass. But inevitably, my mother got full custody. So we flew back to Oregon, which was like a 2.5-hour flight. And then instead of having a very small house or renting a very small duplex, she went to go rent a house. And she bought it. Originally she was just going to rent it out 4 years so I could finish high school, but she fell in love with the place, bought it, remodeled it, touched it all up. So it's better than it was, but yeah, that's how my dad kidnapped me. Interesting title. Not clickbait. I can legit say it's not clickbait since he actually kidnapped me. But that is all for today. Pretty long episode for once. Longest episode I've ever done. Hopefully I can drag it out. But that's all for today. Hopefully it wasn't too emotionally hard-tearing or anything like that.